The phone ringing interrupted my thoughts about World War II. My wife, Joy, who dislikes anything military, was away for 2 weeks at an annual conference. I'm a huge World War II enthusiast and have every war movie ever made. I watch them when she's not home, usually during her bachelorette parties or Saturday shopping trips with her friend Amanda. Twice a year, she goes away for extended periods, to Indianapolis in August for corporate meetings and to a general meeting in February, which was held in Houston this year. Only the top 10 workers from each state attend, and Joy has gone for the past 3 years. Last year, she won a week-long trip to Miami, and we escaped the cold Colorado winter. When she leaves, I binge-watch war films. That Saturday, I watched The Dirty Dozen, Enemy at the Gates, and Saving Private Ryan. I made a sandwich and started Band of Brothers when the phone rang. Part of me was annoyed by the interruption, hoping it was Joy calling with good news. Caller ID showed an unknown caller, which turned out to be my old friend Paul. But to my surprise, it was a female voice. "Hello, I'm trying to contact Roger Rigby," said the voice. "Roger is here. What can I do for you?" "Mr. Rigby, this is Detective Desiree Phillips of the Vale Police. Your wife was in an accident and is at Eagle Valley Medical Center. She's in bad shape and you should come here as soon as possible." "I think you're mistaken. My wife is in Houston for a convention." "When was the last time you spoke to her?" she asked. "Last night. She called after her meetings." The detective read Joy's driver's license address, which matched ours. It was confusing. How could Joy's license be in Vale if she called from Houston? "Maybe someone stole her purse at the airport. Can I press charges?" "You can, but you need to come here, check her things, and sign a statement. If this is your wife, she needs your consent for medical care." I reluctantly packed and headed out. During the drive, I mulled over 2 possibilities. Either someone stole Joy's wallet and went skiing, or Joy was actually in Vale. But why would she be in Vale instead of at her convention in Houston? Maybe she won a trip and went skiing before telling me. I kept questioning the situation, but I had no solid proof she was in Houston. What if she never boarded the plane and went straight to Vale? I was confused and concerned about her safety and the mystery of her whereabouts. What evidence do I have that she is cheating, besides her being in Vale instead of Houston? Has she started dieting or exercising? No, she's always been in good shape. Did she buy hot new clothes? No, she dresses the same. Has she changed her hair or makeup? No, she still looks like she did in the 90s. She doesn't get strange phone calls, act mean, or turn me down for lovemaking. She has no mood swings or signs of infidelity. Being in Vale is the only suspicious thing. So you admit she's not cheating? I admit we don't know what's going on. Bye. As I descended from the past towards Vale, I wondered, what if she is cheating? If she is, I'll leave her. There's no room in my life for a cheater. My mom cheated on my dad, and he eventually forced her to quit her job and constantly checked on her. They stayed together until I graduated high school, then divorced. Dad never recovered from her betrayal and took early retirement after a breakdown. I swore I'd never live like that. I don't want to end up like my father. 5 years ago, my brother Daniel caught his wife cheating and eliminated her and her lover. He's in prison now. I don't want to end up like him either. I need to find a middle ground. If she is cheating, I'll end things without violence. The closer I got to Vale, the more nervous I became. Finding the hospital was easy, and I made my way to the entrance. I hadn't had anything stronger than beer since getting married, but I suddenly craved Jack Daniels. At the information desk, I got the room number and headed to the intensive care unit. I told the nurse who I was there to see, and she called someone to let me in. A short blonde nurse greeted me. "Your wife is under sedatives. She suffered horrific injuries and may not look like herself. She won't hear you, but I want to make sure you're prepared." I won't be surprised if I don't recognize her, I thought, but my voice cracked as I said, "Let me in." The figure on the bed had a woman's body, tall and well-built like my wife, but her face was unrecognizable. "Did she ski into every tree on the mountain?" I asked. "No," the nurse replied. "Someone struck her and left her in an ambulance this morning." Strike her? Faithful wives aren't tormented or abandoned in ambulances, I thought, still unsure if this was my wife. "I can't tell if this is my wife," I said to the nurse. "Maybe this will help," the nurse said, lifting the blanket to reveal a Jiminy Cricket tattoo on the woman's left thigh. That confirmed it was my wife. She got the tattoo before our wedding but never explained its meaning, though she loved Jiminy Cricket and said it represented her parents, Jim and Yvonne. I found it hard to look at her. The first time I saw my wife suffer was also the first time I met her. My friends and I went to a Tool concert and had a case of beer for the after-show party. A girl asked for a beer for her boyfriend, but my buddy Chad refused, offering her a drink instead. Later, I heard a scream and saw the same girl being tormented by a short guy. I intervened, pulling him away and telling him to leave her alone. He threatened me, but I easily subdued him. I helped the girl back to our van where Chad prepared an ice pack. The security team arrived and took the guy away. The girl with a beautiful face, despite wearing Marilyn Manson contact lenses, thanked me. We gave her ice and took her home. Chad teased me, saying she liked me, and handed me a note with her number, saying, "Call me Joy." 2 days later, I called her, and she was happy to hear from me. We talked for an hour, and she called me again that evening. We had our first date on Friday at an Italian restaurant and a bar with live music. After a great night, I told her I didn't believe in lovemaking on the first date, kissed her on the cheek, and went home. It was 3 weeks before we could see each other again due to conflicting schedules. We talked on the phone often, but meeting up was difficult. Finally, after her aunt's funeral, we went to the movies. When I picked her up, her father invited me in, and I didn't know what to expect. "Nice to meet you, Roger. I'm Jim." He asked about my job and if I'd always lived in the Springs. Then he got serious. "Listen, son, you seem like a much better match for Joy than that little loser. Too bad he won't come here and meet me," he said, clenching his fists. "He met me," I replied with a grin. "I hope he's smart enough to stay away." "Yeah, he's not too bright," Jim was interrupted when Joy entered, smiling and hugging me. She wore a hot dress that highlighted her figure. I rethought my 3 dates before lovemaking rule, but we waited until our next date. She had to work early the next morning. The following Friday, we went to dinner. On the way home, she suddenly had stomach cramps and urgently needed a bathroom. My apartment was close, so I took her there. After using the restroom, she emerged in just red underwear and high-heeled boots, saying, "Take off your coat and stay a while." I took off more than my coat. The next morning, we had breakfast nearby and spent the rest of the weekend together. Before I took her home, she said her boss would be eliminated if he ever made her work on a weekend again. She joked about being kept from her favorite illicit substance, looking at me. If I was still her pill, why was she now in a coma? Back at the hospital, the nurse handed me Joy's personal belongings after signing some papers. The intercom buzzed and she passed me the phone. "Mr. Rigby?" asked Detective Phillips. "Could you come to the police station to answer a few questions?" I agreed, got the address, thanked the nurse, and left. My inner voice suggested the cops thought I strike her. I reached the police station as the sun set. After introducing myself, I was greeted by Detective Phillips and Deputy Devon. Phillips seemed nice. Devon looked like he was waiting for me to commit a crime. "Do I need a lawyer?" I asked. "Do you think you need one?" "No, I have nothing to hide." Phillips led me to a room and started recording our conversation. "I'm sorry about calling you a rogue on the phone," I said. "I thought you were my friend bothering me during my me time." "What is me time?" she asked. "Watching World War II movies. Joy hates them, so I binge watch when she's out of town." Just then, Deputy Devon entered and sat down. "Are we ready?" Detective Phillips asked, pressing a switch on the wall to start the voice recorders. "For the record, this is Detective Desiree Phillips interviewing Mr. Roger Rigby in connection with Case 1256G involving the sufferer, Joy Tanya Rigby. Mr. Rigby, please state your name, age, and date of birth." "My name is Roger Ezekiel Rigby. I'm 35, born on December 16th, I replied. "Please provide your address and occupation," Phillips continued. "I live at 1467 West Danube Avenue, Colorado Springs." "I'm a bricklayer," I answered. "Where were you between 6 o'clock last night and 8 o'clock this morning?" Phillips asked. "From 9 this morning until 7 this evening, I was in Manitou Springs repairing a fireplace. Then I drove to Jerry's bar and stayed there until 11 p.m. I got home by 11:30 and stayed there until you called," I explained. "Can anyone confirm your whereabouts?" Phillips questioned. "Mrs. Blanche Donovan in Manitou, Paul Hannibal at Jerry's, and my neighbor Stephen Harper can confirm I was home at midnight, 3 a.m., and 6 a.m., I stated. "How can Stephen confirm this?" Deputy Devon interjected. "We both have dogs that need walks at the same time. Stephen is a night owl and always comes out to say hello when he sees me," I responded. They conferred for a moment, then Phillips continued. "When did you last see your wife?" Phillips inquired. "Monday morning, when I drove her to the airport for her flight to Houston," I said. "Why was she flying to Houston?" Phillips asked. "For her company's annual general meeting. Only top performers attend, and this is her 3rd year," I replied. What does your wife do? Phillips questioned. She sells life insurance for TransUnited. You know those commercials where the old guy tells a kid to be prepared for the inevitable? I hate that ad, I said. They nodded. I cringe every time it airs. Anyway, she flew to Houston, I added. So you saw her off at the airport? Phillips asked. No, I planned to, but we had to go back home because she forgot her bag. I dropped her off later than planned and had to get to work, I explained. How could she forget her luggage? Phillips questioned. She thought I took it to the car when I warmed it up, I said. Why didn't you take her bag? Phillips asked. When I went to start the car, her bag was still open on the bed. I didn't notice it wasn't in the car until we were on the road, I clarified. How often does your wife travel for work? Phillips asked. Twice a year, 2 weeks in February for the general meeting and 2 weeks in August for training in Indianapolis, I answered. Is the meeting always in Houston? Phillips inquired. No, it moves. Last year it was in Los Angeles and New York, I responded. They conferred again. Then Devin asked, Mr. Rigby, do you know anyone who would want to damage your wife? Not really, except maybe a few of her clients, I replied. Why would they want to damage her? Devin probed. The company's sales tactics can upset people. Most of her clients sign up for a free children's info kit, then she offers them life insurance, I explained. Did she meet clients in Vail? Devin asked. I don't know. She should be in Houston, I answered. Do you know anyone she could be with? Phillips inquired. I listed her colleagues who might know why she wasn't in Houston. Devin sighed and looked at Phillips. Okay, Mr. Rigby, you can go. Are you planning to go home tonight? Phillips asked. No, I'll find a motel, I responded. When I left, they said the usual, we'll be in touch. Driving back to the hospital, I realized I had more questions than answers. Was Joy deceiving me? A week ago, I dropped her off at the airport for a flight to Houston, and now she's in a hospital bed in Vail, Colorado. At the hospital, I was told visiting hours were over, but I could return at 7 in the morning. I asked the guard for nearby hotel recommendations. He joked that during ski season, cheap means staying with relatives. I laughed and walked back into the cold, remembering I had Joy's belongings. I checked the inventory sheet and noticed a prescription bottle with 5 Percocet pills left over from a recent root canal. Curious why she had them, I examined her boots, knowing she often hid things in an inside flap. Sure enough, I found a key card, but it was plain white with no identifying marks. I had no idea which room it belonged to. Then I realized Joy's cell phone was missing from the inventory and her purse. Fortunately, my neighbor Steven, a software developer, had given me an app that could track her phone using GPS. I opened the app, entered her number, and it indicated her phone was 4 miles northeast. I drove towards the mountain, following the app's directions. It led me to a road with luxurious ski lodges at the base of the resort. As I approached, the app showed I was half a mile from the phone. The area was filled with Lexuses and Audis, and I was glad I drove Joy's BMW instead of my old SUV. I saw the house had 2 entrances, one to the reception, restaurant, and lounge, and another directly into the lobby. I chose the second to avoid the receptionist. The phone's indicator showed Joy's phone was in room 114, but the keycard didn't work. I tried rooms 214 and 314 with no success. Unsure of what to do, I decided to investigate room 314. Listening at the door, I heard nothing and entered cautiously. The room was dark, and I turned on the light. It was empty, but had signs someone had stayed there. Joy's suitcase, phone charging, and laptop on a table. The room seemed too clean, not like it was professionally cleaned, but like someone tried to make it look unused. The bathroom had damp towels and wet spots on the sink. The bed had been slept in, but there were no signs of violence. I checked Joy's phone, which wasn't password protected, and her laptop, finding that all history and emails were erased, which Joy never did. I called my sister Beth to look after my dog, then my father-in-law Jim, who hoped Joy had won a trip again. Lastly, I called my cousin Hugh, a detective, who advised me to inform the Vail police. I then called the lodge reception, but they had no guest registered under Joy's or her maiden name. Realizing Joy's laptop and phone had been wiped, I planned to take them to Stephen and Joe, skilled programmers. I checked Joy's suitcase, finding mostly cocktail dresses and lingerie, not work clothes, indicating she wasn't on a business trip. The next morning I showered, took Joy's phone and laptop, left the suitcase, and spent the night in a chair. After a cup of coffee, I called Detective Phillips. Despite feeling terrible, I was relieved my inner smartass was still alive. Phillips answered, not sounding sleepy at all. Detective Phillips, this is Roger Rigby. Last night I found a hotel key card among my wife's belongings. I thought it might help with her case. She thanked me and said she'd meet me in half an hour. I drove around Vale for 25 minutes before heading to the police station. Detective Phillips greeted me as I entered. "Hello, Mr. Rigby," she said, shaking my hand. "Good morning," I replied, handing her the key card. "Here it is." "Please come with me," she said, leading me to her office. "You look like your world has collapsed. Need to unwind?" I confessed I found the room using Joy's phone. She seemed relieved I hadn't touched the bed. I handed her Joy's phone but didn't mention the laptop. "What will you do now, Mr. Rigby?" "I don't know. I think I'll lose my wife over this. I want to hear her explanation, but I doubt I can believe it." "Don't lose hope yet. There may be a logical explanation that doesn't involve infidelity," she said, though her face showed doubt. I thanked her and went to the hospital, waiting for the next visiting session in the NICU. After 2 15-minute visits hoping Joy would wake up, a doctor came out. Dr. Benson, who looked like a quarterback, assured me Joy was recovering but suggested transferring her to Denver's St. Luke's for better rehabilitation. He explained her injuries, likely caused by a blow to the head, and I signed for her transport. Later, he changed plans to St. Augustine Hospital in Colorado Springs, closer for family visits. I signed more papers, made a final visit, and then left, thinking about my future without Joy. "Joy, I don't know why you're here or what's going on, but it seems our marriage can't handle these secrets. I won't file for divorce until we talk, but it feels over." Leaving the hospital with tears in my eyes, I called Jim to update him. Back home, my sister's Jeep was in the driveway. Inside, my Doberman Piper greeted me, followed by Beth. I hugged her, expressing my love, and broke down about my marriage ending. She stayed with me until late, trying to console me and suggesting dinner, but I wasn't hungry. We decided to visit Jim together. I told Jim and Yvonne everything. Jim looked unsure about his daughter's innocence, a look I'd seen before. Months into dating Joy, she had once canceled a weekend date. I was disappointed but understood. I was about to hang up when I heard Jim's voice. "Tell that son of a cow he better meet me." Joy made an indignant noise and told me to ignore it before hanging up. I was worried why he was angry at me. 10 minutes later, I was on her porch and Jim was yelling in my face. "You're no better than that little rogue. If you think you need to whip my daughter, be a man and whip me," Jim said, his voice thick with anger. "Should I whip your daughter?" Garrett asked, incredulous. "What?" I responded, shocked he thought that. "She didn't go out last night. You think you're so tough. What makes you whip now?" Garrett continued. I shouted, "The only person I've punched was that idiot Garrett the night I met Joy. I haven't seen Joy since last weekend. We rarely see each other during the week. You need to know the facts before you start yelling." At that moment, Joy and Yvonne came out, and I saw Joy had a black eye. "What happened to your eye, baby?" I asked, my voice softening. "You punched her, you idiot," Jim yelled. About to retort, Joy spoke up. "He didn't punch me. Daddy, I'm sorry, but I had dinner with Garrett last night, and we argued." I walked to my car. Joy yelled, "Roger, come back." Jim caught up with me. "Son, I'm so sorry," Joy added. "Sorry, baby, it was just dinner." "Jim, I understand your anger. I'm sorry I was disrespectful. Joy, I'm sorry you got hurt again, but we're breaking up," I said, firm in my decision. Ignoring their responses, I drove aimlessly until I ended up near Garrett's trailer park. I parked, walked to his door, and knocked. When Garrett opened the door, I punched him. He fell, and I continued striking him until he stopped reacting. I saw moving boxes. "Are you moving?" I kicked him again and left, putting ice on my knuckles at home. The phone rang, and Joy's pleading voice came through. I hung up. The phone kept ringing for an hour before stopping. Finally, my cousin Hugh called. He warned me that the CSPD had received a call fearing Garrett Jimenez was in danger. "I don't care about him," I told Hugh. "No, but CSPD is going to contact you. Jimenez was found in bad shape, and he said some big guy attacked him," Hugh continued. "I don't know any big guys, Hugh. But the caller mentioned you, so naturally your name came up." "Thanks for the warning, Hugh." "I hope you have a good alibi, Rogue." "I do." By the time the police arrived, I was ready. My hockey gear was by the door, and my swollen knuckles had only a small scratch. The officer didn't seem too interested in finding Garrett's attacker, so my story about working on hockey equipment explained my hands. Playing on a police-sponsored hockey team didn't hurt either. On Saturday, I skated until I was exhausted, preparing for the upcoming season. One of our best defensemen was gone, so I'd get more ice time. When I got home, there were several notes on my door, mostly from Joy. One was from Jim, apologizing for thinking I could hurt Joy and asking me not to be mad at her. I called Jim and told him I understood his reaction. You reacted like any decent father would. It's not your fault Joy didn't confess right away, I reassured him. Glad to hear that. Do you want to talk to Joy? Jim asked. I could hear Joy in the background, but I refused. No, Jim. She followed Garrett's lead and let you think I punched her. She ruined our date to hide her face. I don't have time for cheating women. As I told Jim and Yvonne about everything from Vale, Jim looked like he was remembering the past. I'm glad they brought her here. I hope you're not planning anything rash, Jim said, concerned. No, sir. I'm not hiring lawyers yet, but she needs to explain this, I replied. Whatever happens, Roger, we think of you as a son. Don't cut us out of your life, Jim said. I assured them I wouldn't. On the way home, Beth asked if I'd be okay. Do I have a choice? Curling up and dying isn't an option, I told her. If she cheats, will you stay together? Beth asked. No, I won't turn into a paranoid husband who needs GPS trackers and spy cameras, I replied. Mom asked about you. She loves you and it'd be good to talk to her, Beth suggested. So she can tell me cheating is normal and I should share my wife? No thanks. If there's one person I shouldn't talk to, it's her, I said firmly. Beth always protected our mom. When Daniel went to prison, she asked me to visit more. I tried once, but she defended Danny, so I left. Joy called me rude, but I told her I wouldn't tolerate a cheating spouse. I don't want you to regret any decisions, Beth warned. Don't worry, I'll get answers first, I assured her. After Beth dropped me off, I went to Stephen and Joe's place. Stephen started examining Joy's laptop immediately. I updated them, and Stephen asked to keep the laptop for a day or two to dig deeper. Joe offered to set me up with his cousin. Joe, if your cousin doesn't have C-cup bosoms and a shaved pubic area, I'm not interested, I joked. Prude, he laughed. Joe always tried to embarrass me, but I wasn't shocked by his and Stephen's lifestyle. I stayed for a beer with Joe while Stephen worked on the laptop. Joe went to bed early for work, joking about his hot neighbor. I thought Mrs. Jasper had been a widow for a long time, I said. Joe laughed and wished me good night. Stephen barely noticed as I left. At home, I took Piper outside for her chores and some playtime. In winter, she usually tires after 3 throws. I climbed into bed and called Piper over. Joy hated when Piper slept in the bed, but I didn't care. Even though Piper is a big sleeper, I couldn't blame my bad dreams entirely on her. The next morning, I drank coffee and tried to focus on the sports section until 8. By 9, I was in Bernie Jaggs's office. Bernie, Joy's boss, always called me Brian instead of Roger. How can I help, Brian? He said cheerfully. Is there any reason Joy would leave the convention in Houston to go to Vale? I asked. Why should Joy be in Houston? He responded, puzzled. For your company's general meeting. Roger, the meeting in Houston was for novice agents, not top performers. Joy, as a managing agent, usually doesn't attend. I only send one if I can't find a volunteer. Joy has never gone. I was stunned and getting angrier. What about the training in Indianapolis? I pressed. My managing agents attend those, but they usually leave Sunday and return Thursday, Bernie explained. I realized Joy had been taking 2 weeks off and staying elsewhere. They? I asked, referring to her companions. Gentlemen, if I tell you this, you must promise no damage will come to them, Bernie said cautiously. Bernie, my wife is in a coma. I just need answers, I replied. He hesitated, but eventually told me who Joy had been with. I was surprised by the name. An hour later, my cousin Hugh called. They found out who rented Joy's room. We're calling him in. Can I be with you when you talk to Cal? Hugh asked. Sure, I went to see Joy's boss and learned a lot from Bernie Jaggs. I'll call when we arrange an interview, I said. I spent the next few hours at the hospital with the brain injury team. Part of me wanted to let Joy rot, but I needed more evidence. Jim and Yvonne arrived before Joy was transported. I told them what I'd learned. Jim was in disbelief, and Yvonne begged me to wait before taking any action. I promised not to damage Joy. Can you get through this? Yvonne asked. I don't know. I can't trust her anymore. I saw what this did to my father, I admitted. But you took her back once, Yvonne reminded me. Yes, but we weren't married, and she didn't actively deceive me then, I clarified. I didn't see Joy for 3 weeks after I attacked Garrett. She stopped calling halfway through the second week. When I stopped dodging calls, I realized we hadn't declared our relationship exclusive. She let her dad think I slapped her, which was a huge red flag. I returned home from hockey practice, looking forward to a hot shower and ibuprofen. She was sitting by my door. I don't answer your calls, so you came here? I asked, irritated. Do you need to be a prick? I missed you, Joy replied. You didn't miss me. Maybe I missed you if your boyfriend is still in bed, I retorted. Oh, so you're mad about Garrett, she said, defensive. No, what really angers me is that you let your father believe I slapped you, I stated firmly. I walked in, realizing she had followed me. She started to speak, but I interrupted. We never decided to be exclusive, so I can't be upset about you sleeping with him. I'm angry at myself for not seeing the truth. I stupidly thought that if I slept with a girl, we were dating until we decided otherwise. I threw my things down and continued. We had some good times. You don't like that I'm not abusive or an idiot? Fine. You want a paranoid rogue who can't handle your physical needs and attacks you? Enjoy it. Maybe I'll send you brass knuckles as a wedding gift. Are you finished? She asked defiantly, tears in her eyes. Oh, I'm done. Why are you still here? I shot back. Listen, idiot. I'm sorry I let my dad think you hurt me. I canceled our date so you wouldn't do something that would land you in jail. I left my phone at home when I went to Garrett's, she explained. Hey, you don't need to explain. I'm done with this, I said, trying to end the conversation. No, you need to listen. I went to see Garrett because he was moving to Wyoming. He asked me to go with him. When I said no, he attacked me. I hid at my friend Julie's house. I went home to call you so you wouldn't confront him. My dad saw my face before I could explain, she clarified, her voice trembling. Okay, I listened. Now I have a hot shower date. Her expression changed until I said shower. Then she looked completely dejected. I don't know why I said it, but I asked, Want to join me? She didn't need to be asked twice. That evening, we decided to be exclusive. 3 weeks later, she moved in, and 8 months later, we married. Garrett only came up again when he died in a car accident in Laramie, Wyoming. She attended his funeral with a friend for 2 days. Now, a decade later, Joy was in a coma at St. Augustine's Hospital. Doctors said she had a good chance of recovery. We were taken back to the waiting room, and after 30 minutes, Hugh texted that Cal Davis would be interviewed at 4 o'clock. I told Jim and Yvonne I had an appointment and left. At home, I let Piper out while I put on a suit and tie. If Sheriff Jeb Hannibal was letting me sit in on the interrogation, I needed to look the part. I've known Jeb all my life. He and my dad worked together, and I was best friends with his son, Paul. Paul and I played football and hockey together until Jeb became sheriff and moved closer to the office. Everyone thought Paul and I would play professional hockey, but life had other plans. My father died while I was in college, and I lost interest in the game, dropping out to become a bricklayer. Paul broke his hip in his junior season, ending his career. He now works for the Colorado Springs Police and coaches youth hockey. At the sheriff's office, Hugh greeted me. Zeke, the Vail Police will join via video conference. You'll sit away from their view. Jeb reminded me to tell you not to say anything that might jeopardize the case. I understand, and I know not to attack him. Nora and I have your back. Just ask if you need anything. We walked to the interrogation rooms. I recognized Catherine Shepard immediately. She was even more stunning than in high school. She had always been out of my league, the prom queen and cheerleader dating the varsity quarterback, while I was a defenseman on the hockey team, a sport with few fans. I wondered if she had married a doctor or lawyer as she was ushered into the room. Stop drooling, Zeke, Hugh said, leading me inside. Sheriff Jeb Hannibal grinned widely. I've always wanted to do this, he said, pulling out a badge. I'm appointing you as a deputy so we can say only law enforcement officers are in the room. He made me take an oath and reminded me to return the badge before leaving. He even hugged me, saying, I hope you get your diploma and come work for me someday. Your dad was a great cop, and I know you will be too. Hugh and I walked out of Jeb's office. My thoughts drifted to Catherine Shepard, wondering if she too would have been unfaithful if I'd been with her. Maybe the men in my family only marry cheaters. We reached the interrogation room, and Hugh pointed me to a chair out of the camera's view. Detective Phillips and another officer joined via video conference. A deputy brought in Cal Davis, who looked like a smooth-talking salesman. Hugh began, Mr. Davis, this interview is being recorded. Sure, no problem, Cal said. For the record, Detective Hugh McMillan of the El Paso County Sheriff's Department is here with Detectives Keith Douglas and Roger Riggs. Also, Detective Desiree Phillips and Detective Ron Albert from the Vail Police Department are on video conference. Mr. Davis, do you understand your rights and agree to speak without a lawyer? Yes, I agree. As they asked routine questions, my intuition told me Cal wasn't the one who hit Joy. He seemed too polished and had a wedding ring that probably cost more than my truck. Finally, they got to the crucial questions. Mr. Davis, Phillips asked, can you tell us your whereabouts from Monday to Sunday? Yes, I was in Houston Monday through Friday for our company meeting. I returned home Friday evening and spent the weekend with my wife, Cal replied. So, you've been at the meeting all week? Phillips confirmed. Yes, Cal said confidently. Phillips said, that makes things easier. We'll just need to confirm with your employer. The confident smile on Cal's face faded. He looked worried when Hugh mentioned calling Bernie Jaggs. Wait, Cal said, his swagger gone. Can I tell you something without my wife knowing? He soon admitted he'd been having an affair with Joy for over 6 years. He was scared when he heard it concerned Joy, fearing she was missing or dead. When I left, she called her husband saying she won a trip to Vail and was flying to Denver. I dropped her off at the terminal, and she was supposed to wait for him to pick her up. My wife can confirm I was home since Friday evening, Cal explained. After a few more questions, Hugh signed a waiver for Vail's services and told Cal he was free to go, but not to leave the city. Can I ask a favor? Cal asked Hugh. You can ask, but no guarantees, Hugh responded. Can I have a few minutes alone with Detective Riggs? Cal requested. Hugh looked at me and I agreed. I sat across from Cal, who looked broken and depressed, a far cry from the confident man who had walked in 40 minutes earlier. So, Roger, do we need formal introductions? Cal asked. Obviously not. You seem to know who I am, I replied. Joy keeps a photo of you in her presentation kit and on her desk. She loves you, you know, Cal said. No, I answered flatly. No, he doesn't. If I did, we wouldn't be here. The problem is, I love her too, Cal continued. Well, at least 4 weeks a year, I added. I bet your wife doesn't think much of your love. I love her, Roger. I love my wife too. She knows about my crush on Joy. Let me explain. I knew Joy was special when I interviewed her. I felt like I had to mentor her. One Saturday, after some no-shows, we had lunch near the Army base. We had chemistry and ended up in a hotel. We didn't make love for a month afterward. Feeling guilty but drawn to each other, Cal explained. Not guilty enough to stop, right? I said sarcastically. It sounds cheap when you say it like that. It's not, Cal defended. Sorry, didn't mean to ruin your fairy tale, I said mockingly. I understand your anger. I can't imagine how you feel. But I don't regret loving Joy, Cal said sincerely. I couldn't believe his nonsense. I wanted to punch him, but I restrained myself. Joy was no longer my problem. So you're okay with your wife running off with someone else twice a year? I asked. No. It's hard enough sharing Joy with you, but you can have her now, Cal offered. So, you're giving her up because she loves someone else? Do you think I'd share? I had no idea. If I had known, we wouldn't have shared long. I don't approve of cheating, I stated. You're probably right. That's why you and my wife took trips. Joy went to Mexico City, San Diego, and Rio. You got Cabo San Lucas, Corpus Christi, and Miami. You were supposed to go to Vail and my wife to Estes Park. We stuck with local trips because extra travel was too expensive. I went to Miami once. I signed up for her cheating back in Vail. You two have been having lovemaking in Indy for 2 weeks during those supposed meetings, Cal revealed. What do you mean about all these other cities? I asked, bewildered. Joy and I felt bad, so we gave our spouses vacations. She'd invite you to join her for the second week and I'd return home. We'd spend 1 week together, then swap. I went home and she spent the second week with you, Cal explained. Nonsense. Joy was away for 2 weeks each time and I only went to Miami. That room was used too long for just one night. So was she cheating on me? I accused. Cal started crying. Is it true? Cheated on you? Screw you. Tell Joy I said hi. She's in St. Augustine S, room 2410. Tell her dad I'll be in touch, Cal said bitterly. I headed for the door but stopped when he asked, You're not going to tell my wife, are you? I don't know your wife. Even if I did, I wouldn't hurt her. No, I won't tell her. It's better knowing your guilt will eat you alive. But it won't. Traitors have no conscience. One day you'll answer for this, I said, leaving. Hugh was waiting in the corridor. Hey, Zeke, I'm really sorry. I thought we had the guy, Hugh said sympathetically. I knew he wasn't the one who slapped her as soon as he walked in. How could this happen under my nose all this time? I said, frustrated. A commotion interrupted us. We turned to see Catherine Shepard slapping Cal. You're a worthless, cheating son of a cow. Don't come home, Calvin. I don't want to see you anymore, she yelled. She sobbed as a deputy pulled her away. She looked at me, then hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. It's not your fault or mine, I said. We both just married the wrong people. She laughed and pulled away. I wiped a tear from her face. I hope things get better for you, I told her. I've had a few days to process this. "I wish you luck too, Roger," she said, kissing me on the cheek before leaving. I recognized the officer with her as her brother, James, who was 2 grades behind us in school. I realized why she was at the sheriff's station. I turned to Hugh and said, "He has her at home, yet he needed to have lovemaking with Joy." "Some guys just want what they can't have," he replied. We went to Jeb's office so I could return my badge and listen to another lecture about finishing my degree and becoming a cop. I've heard it before, but maybe one day I'll listen. Something has been telling me I'm missing out. The next few days were stressful. On Tuesday, I looked for a lawyer who wouldn't let me get screwed in the divorce. I hired a firm in Denver that handles men's cases. They promised to protect me. I was glad Joy and I had no kids. Piper was mine, and the house belonged to Joy's grandma, though legally it was Jim's. My brother and I inherited our dad's house. Daniel lived there with his wife and paid me rent. When Daniel eliminated her and her lover, her family tried to take the house, but my lawyer saved it. The court ruled I had a majority interest due to the rent payments. Joy was angry about the money I spent, but I refused to let cheaters get my father's house. In hindsight, her attitude was a red flag. Late Tuesday, I went to the hospital where Jim was keeping watch. He saw me and shook his head. "How long?" he asked. 6 years since she started selling insurance, but there's probably more, I admitted. "I can't believe my daughter could be so deceitful," Jim said, disheartened. "Me neither. I wouldn't have married her if I knew," I replied. I told him everything Cal had said. Jim wondered why Joy never took photos on trips, unlike when she was younger. I told him I wouldn't visit the hospital again because I couldn't bear to see her. He understood and asked me to stay at the house until she was ready to return, to prevent any damage. I agreed and also said I wouldn't file for divorce until she recovered. I'd missed Jim and Yvonne. They treated me like a son. On Wednesday, I worked on a chimney repair and played a hockey match in the evening. I spent much of the first period in the penalty box for rough play. Our coach, a friend of Paul's, benched me to prevent me from getting kicked out of the league. After losing the game, I was in a bad mood. My teammates didn't blame me and even offered to confront Cal, but I refused. At home, Piper was ready to go outside. While she ran around, I reminded myself to check the fence at Dad's house. Stephen shouted from a window that he'd be over soon, likely with news about Joy's laptop. I had spent the previous evening looking through our desk for clues. Bills and bank statements revealed nothing unusual. How did she pay for these trips? I noticed she called her friend Fiona more frequently before trips, but Fiona wouldn't tell me anything. I had never met Fiona, which now seemed strange. When I called her number, I got a voicemail. I regretted not having Joy's cell phone. When Stephen walked into the house, he looked excited. "What did you find, Steve?" I asked. "Grab me a beer and I'll show you everything," Stephen said. I got us a couple of beers, and we sat down. Stephen opened Joy's laptop. "Whoever erased the tracks knew what they were doing," Stephen said. "There are several programs here I know you didn't install." "Don't be offended, Zeke. You always have me handle your computer stuff." "I know I don't know a thing about computers, so I'm not offended," I said. "Okay, first I found a program that lets Joy use the internet without recording browser history. Luckily, my friend from the Department of Defense helped me figure it out. We found a lot," Stephen explained. "So Joy is a computer genius, and I didn't know?" I asked, incredulous. "No, Joy uses the same password for everything. This was done by someone who really knows their stuff," Stephen clarified. My mind ran through people Joy knew, and Fiona came up. She worked at a software company specializing in defense. "What was she hiding?" I asked. "She accessed cloaking programs for her email and bank account," Stephen said. "So that's how she paid for these trips," I said, thinking out loud. "What trips?" Stephen asked, curious. I told Stephen what I learned from Cal. His eyes widened as I continued. When I finished, he said, "You know I can't tell Joe you have a badge. He'd never stop asking you to wear a uniform." "I was in a suit, not a uniform. Did you read the emails?" I asked. "Yes, I hacked into the mail server and found deleted emails. Most were love notes, some mentioning meeting in Vail," Stephen said. "Any idea who wrote them?" I asked. "Some were to Cal Davis and some to an email address, Cricket 4207. In one email, she calls him Garrett," Stephen revealed. "Son of a cow," I muttered. "Exactly," Stephen agreed. Stephen showed me how to access the bank and email accounts, recovering and securing them. Joy's bank account had over $10,000, with suspicious ATM withdrawals even after her hospitalization. I transferred the funds to our joint account and closed her account. I also changed all contact info to my email. Then I looked into Fiona, finding nothing on Facebook. In Joy's high school albums, I found Garrett. He was Fiona Jimenez's brother. I needed to make a call. "Hello?" Detective Phillips answered sleepily. It was 1 a.m., and I felt guilty for waking her. "Detective Phillips, this is Zeke, Roger Riggs," I said. "Detective Riggs, how did you know I was here?" she asked, surprised. "My cousin, Detective McMillan, left the video on, and I saw you with Davis. I think I know who attacked my wife," I explained. She perked up. I told her about the bank account, not mentioning how I found it, and described Garrett and the missing debit card. The card had been used that morning. "Thanks, and don't worry about waking me. You should be a cop," she said, sounding more alert. "I hear that all the time." "Well, good night," I said. She wished me good night and hung up. I envied and pitied her husband. Envied him for that hot voice. Pitied him for the strain of a police officer's life on a family. Some spouses handle it, but some, like my mother, can't. Piper whined to go out, and I saw Stephen on the porch. "Hey, Stephen, do you still have access to the DMV databases?" I asked. "Hell yeah, I always have access," he replied. "Good, Mr. Hacker Deluxe." I teased him about his chat room nickname, and he didn't mind. I gave him a name to look up and said goodnight, knowing he'd enjoy the challenge. Exhausted, I agreed with my body that it was time to sleep. The phone woke me the next morning. My father-in-law was calling. "Good morning, Roger. The doctors are tapering Joy's medications. She should wake up within 24 hours, Jim informed me. That's sooner than expected. I thought she'd be in a coma for at least a week, I said, surprised. They were encouraged by some test results. Have you considered forgiving her? He asked. No, I keep finding more deception. There's no going back, I replied. I filled him in on everything, except the secret bank account. He was devastated and hung up, disappointed. I had just made coffee when Stephen arrived. You won't believe what I found, he said, excited. Morning, Steve. Doesn't Joe find it strange you're here at 8 in the morning while he's at work? I asked. You're teasing him, and he knows it, Stephen said as I laughed. You said I wouldn't believe what? I asked, handing him coffee. He showed me his findings, and it felt like falling down a rabbit hole. Joy had only half lied about going to Garrett's funeral. She actually went to Fiona's. Fiona, Garrett's sister, died in a car accident in Laramie, and Joy likely started the affair then. Last year, when Joy called me to Miami, Garrett was in jail for petty theft and on parole, unable to leave Colorado. That explained Joy's insistence on local trips. I told my lawyer my plan. He laughed and said he could arrange everything legally. All I could do was wait for Joy to wake up. 2 weeks later, Joy was ready to be questioned by the police. I walked behind Detectives Phillips and Albert as they headed to her room. Garrett had been arrested trying to withdraw money from Joy's bank account with a stolen card. His parole officer was interested in his unauthorized trip to Vail, and Denver police were happy to hold him. Phillips and Albert went into Joy's room while I stayed in the hallway, looking like a detective. Hugh arranged for me to listen in. Joy initially hesitated, denying everything until they confronted her with evidence of her being with both Cal and Garrett. She admitted to both affairs, but was embarrassed to say Garrett had tormented her. Then Phillips played a card I didn't see coming. I'm sure you know your husband believes you had 2 lovers. Whatever you say could help him reconcile with you. Not a chance, I thought, as Phillips spewed her nonsense. Joy confessed everything. How she lied to go to Garrett's sister's funeral, feeling sorry for him. We decided we still loved each other, but I loved Roger too. Garrett suggested secret monthly meetings. I didn't see how it could hurt Roger, so I agreed. She recounted her affair with Cal, saying she was turned on by their secret meetings. She claimed guilt about Roger not going with her, so she gave him Miami. Her smugness infuriated me. Then she described the night Garrett attacked her. I told him I was stopping the pills so Roger and I could have kids. Garrett wanted a chance to impregnate me. When I refused, he lost his temper. Phillips asked about the Jiminy Cricket tattoo. Garrett's idea. He said it was a way to be with me all the time without Roger knowing. At that moment, I entered. She had the nerve to call me baby. Hey, baby, I'm really sorry. Can I explain? I handed her a stack of papers. No need. You've been served. I heard her scream as I left to move on with my life. 5 years later, I was woken by a late-night call. I got the necessary information and left. I kissed my sleeping wife and then her swollen belly. Better be careful not to start something you can't finish, she said sleepily. Just kissing Charlie Brown goodbye? I replied, excited to become a father. 30 minutes later, I arrived at the crime scene. I had seen many trailers like this on patrol. 5 years ago, I divorced Joy, thinking it would be straightforward. I was wrong. After I refused to talk to her, Jim hired a lawyer for her. Her financial forms didn't include her secret account. I wondered how she funded it. One day, I ran into Cal Davis. He tried to dodge me, but I invited him to dinner. Over lunch, he revealed that Joy had been funneling unreported income into a secret account, totaling over $120,000 in 6 years. I transferred over $30,000 into our joint account. Joy didn't know I discovered this and planned to take advantage. I suggested we split our account 50/50ths and keep our assets. She offered 75% of our total account, thinking she was being generous by not asking for half of the house I inherited. My lawyer argued that since she owned the house, she had nothing to lose from my inheritance. We agreed to split the joint account 50/50, and she would get 50% of my business. I signed the agreement hastily, and it was entered into the court system. She wrote me a check for exactly half of our total balance plus 50 cents. I sold my share of the masonry business back to my uncle for the same dollar I paid him. The tools, which I owned before the marriage, were untouchable. After selling the business, I went to college, completed my criminal justice degree, and joined the El Paso County Sheriff's Department. My lawyer ensured everything was legal. Joy's grin disappeared when she discovered her secret account had been looted. My accountant did some creative bookkeeping, showing all the money in the joint account came from Joy's insurance and my business. I paid all taxes and was free. Joy never knew she paid for my education. An anonymous call to the IRS led to Joy being audited. She served 6 months for tax evasion. Garrett, caught with her bank card, was blamed for stealing her money. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison after violating parole and assaulting Joy. Katrina divorced Cal, who moved to Utah to start over. When Joy got out of prison, she worked at a telemarketing firm. She sent me a bitter letter, accusing me of ruining our marriage and deceiving her and Garrett. I threw it away and moved on. Paul joked I should have sold her to a brothel. I replied she would have enjoyed it. I spent my first 3 years in the sheriff's department in a patrol car. While CSPD handles major crimes, we deal with more domestic violence cases. The only time I drew my service weapon was when a woman threatened me with a knife for arresting her husband for striking her. That was a year and a half ago. I've been a detective for a little over a year. I can't understand why women return to abusive men, especially when I see a woman tormented to end of life among empty beer bottles. Forensics had already taken fingerprints and photos. By the end of the day, I would have the husband's name and start the search. The woman's boyfriend was in the bedroom with a fractured skull. Either the husband eliminated them both, or the boyfriend did it. I'll spend the morning reviewing old reports and talking to officers who had been to this trailer before. The upside is, I'll get less crap from my boss for losing a detective indefinitely. A new detective transferred to my team. All I heard from Hugh was that the guy came from the north. At a bar party next to our substation, I was shocked to see Desiree Phillips. We talked, and I knew some detectives were upset that I was molestating the new detective, but we had our own story. I didn't pursue her because I thought she was married. We became friends, and even after learning she was single, I didn't try anything. I was disappointed in relationships. We went to dinner and movies, but I never considered it dating. I always dropped her off like a gentleman and watched adult videos at home. One evening, after a tough case, I took her to a bar. I stayed mostly sober to ensure her safety. At the end of the evening, I took her home and helped her take off her shoes. She hugged me, and I pulled away, not wanting to ruin our friendship. She wasn't as drunk as I thought. "Why don't you want to touch me, Zeke?" "First, you're drunk. I don't want to ruin our friendship. Second, I don't know if I'm ready." "That cheater messed you up so much you think all women are evil?" "No, you're one of the hottest." "Come with me. I'm not drunk. I've been with 4 guys in my life. You know all the stories." She later admitted she liked me from the moment we met in Vail. She never dreamed I'd work in the police. When she transferred, it felt like a sign. 2 detectives got jobs in Denver, and that night was the first of many times we slept together. A year later, we got married, and a month later, we had a baby. My boss hated that she needed maternity leave and blamed me for it. I used to joke with Hugh that Nora could be his godmother, but he wouldn't like it. He's not happy about me taking a month off to enjoy my son. As a bonus, Desiree loves World War II movies. Life is good, and I hope Piper will be okay with living with her mom and dad. Something tells me she will be.